Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why no matter how hard you try, a certain someone keeps living in your mind, rent-free? You wake up with their thoughts. You go to sleep with their memories. Even when you're busy, they are there, lingering like a shadow you cannot outrun. Why? Why does this happen? Is it love? Is it regret? Or is it something deeper? My dear friends, life has a way of binding us to people in ways we don't always understand. Sometimes it's the people we love, sometimes it's the ones who hurt us, and sometimes it's the ones who left without an explanation. Their presence in our thoughts isn't a coincidence. It's a lesson, a whisper from the universe, a reflection of something we are meant to learn. Let me tell you a story. There was once a young woman who gave her heart away completely. She loved with every fiber of her being, believing that love had the power to heal, to transform. But one day, the person she loved the most walked away without a word, without closure. She spent years trying to understand why. She replayed conversations, dissected moments, questioned herself. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? But no answer came, only silence, and yet he never left her mind. Our minds are intricate webs of thoughts, emotions, and memories, constantly shaping the way we perceive the world around us. When someone occupies our thoughts persistently, it is rarely just a random occurrence. The mind does not hold on to people without reason. Rather, it clings to them as part of a larger lesson that we have yet to understand. Every person who lingers in our thoughts is a reflection of something unresolved within us, a message we may not have fully deciphered, or a part of ourselves that we have neglected. The mind, in its quiet wisdom, brings these individuals back to us, not to haunt us, but to heal us. There are times when we meet someone who changes our lives in ways we never expected. Maybe they walked into our lives at a time when we needed them the most. Maybe they became our source of strength, a reason to smile, or a reminder that kindness still exists. And then, just as suddenly as they arrived, they were gone. Their absence feels like a void, and no matter how much time passes, their name still echoes in the corridors of our mind. The logical part of us wants to move on, to forget, to let go. But the heart and mind do not always work in logic. Instead, they hold on to the person, replaying conversations, reliving moments, and searching for meaning in their departure. The question that often arises is, why? Why do some people stay imprinted in our thoughts, while others fade away with time? One possible reason is that these individuals serve as mirrors. They reflect back to us aspects of ourselves that we either cherish or struggle to accept. If someone made us feel loved, valued, and understood, their absence might highlight the parts of us that still crave validation and connection. On the other hand, if someone hurt us, betrayed us, or left us with unanswered questions, their lingering presence in our thoughts may be a sign that we are still grappling with unresolved pain, self-doubt, or the need for closure. Our minds are constantly seeking completion. And when a story feels unfinished, it replays over and over again in an attempt to find an ending that makes sense. Another reason someone stays in our thoughts is that they entered our lives at a defining moment. Perhaps they were there during a period of immense change, struggle, or growth. Our attachment to them is not just about the person themselves, but about the emotions and experiences associated with that time. The mind connects memories to emotions, and when a particular person is linked to a deep emotional experience, they become intertwined with our identity. It is not necessarily that we miss the person, we miss the version of ourselves that existed when they were around. They become symbolic of a time when we felt a certain way, whether that was loved, inspired, or even broken. And until we come to terms with that chapter of our lives, they will continue to surface in our thoughts. Sometimes the mind holds on to people because we never truly expressed what we felt. Words left unsaid, emotions never acknowledged, and truths never spoken can create a loop that keeps playing in our subconscious. The regret of not saying, "I love you," when we had the chance. The guilt of not apologizing when we should have, or the pain of never receiving an apology we deserved. These are the unresolved emotions that keep someone alive in our thoughts. The mind is relentless in its pursuit of closure, but closure does not always come from others. It is something we must create within ourselves. There are also instances when we idolize someone to the extent that their presence in our thoughts becomes a form of self-comfort or escape. We attach our happiness to them, believing that they were the source of our joy, when in reality they were only a trigger that unlocked something already within us. The mind romanticizes the past, making it seem more beautiful than it actually was, and in doing so, it keeps us stuck in memories that no longer serve us. This is why nostalgia can be both a gift and a curse. It allows us to relive moments of happiness, but it can also prevent us from embracing the present and future. When someone is always on our mind, it is easy to believe that it is because of love, but love is not the only force that keeps people in our thoughts. Sometimes it is fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of letting go, the fear of losing a part of ourselves that we associate with them. Other times it is longing, a deep yearning for something that we believe we can never have again. And sometimes it is simply habit. The mind, accustomed to thinking about someone daily, continues to do so out of routine rather than real attachment. But the most profound reason why someone remains in our thoughts is that they represent something unfinished within us. They are the unanswered question, the missing piece, the lingering what if that keeps us tethered to the past. The mind does not cling to people without purpose. It holds on to them because in some way they are connected to our growth, our wounds, or our transformation. They are a signpost directing us towards something within ourselves that needs attention. Until we recognize this, we will continue to be haunted by their presence, mistaking their memory for fate when in reality they are simply a part of our journey toward understanding ourselves. Unresolved emotions have a way of staying with us, lingering in the corners of our minds like unfinished stories waiting to be told. When someone occupies our thoughts persistently, it is often because there is an emotional thread that remains untied, a wound that hasn't fully healed, or an experience that left a mark deeper than we realized. Our minds are not just passive observers, they are intricate weavers of our emotional experiences, holding on to moments that left an impact. Whether it was love, heartbreak, betrayal, regret, or even a fleeting connection that felt significant, the emotions tied to these experiences anchor certain people in our thoughts long after they have left our lives. Sometimes it is the absence of closure that keeps a person alive in our minds. A conversation that ended abruptly, a relationship that faded without explanation, or a situation where we never got to say what we truly felt. These unresolved emotions create an open loop in our psyche. The mind is wired to seek completion, to make sense of things, to put a period at the end of every sentence. When a situation ends without resolution, the mind keeps returning to it, searching for an ending that never came. We replay old conversations, imagine different scenarios, and wonder about the what-ifs that could have changed the outcome. But no matter how much we think about it, the closure we seek remains elusive. And so the person stays in our thoughts, not necessarily because we want them to, but because the mind refuses to let go of an unfinished chapter. Regret is another powerful force that binds people to our thoughts. The regret of words left unsaid, actions not taken, or opportunities missed can keep us trapped in a cycle of overthinking. We wonder if things could have been different, if we had chosen another path, if we had been more open, more honest, or more present. This regret can be subtle, lingering in the background of our thoughts, or it can be all-consuming, making it difficult to move forward. The more we dwell on what we could have done differently, the more we keep that person alive in our minds, not because they are meant to be there, but because we have yet to forgive ourselves for how things ended. At times, it is not the regret of our own actions, but the pain of someone else's actions that keeps them in our thoughts. When someone has wronged us, hurt us, or left us in a way that felt unfair, our minds struggle to make sense of it. We look for explanations, we try to understand their motives, and we seek validation for our pain. The betrayal, the disappointment, or the heartbreak lingers, replaying itself in our thoughts like a song stuck on repeat. We tell ourselves that we want to forget, that we are ready to move on, yet their presence in our minds suggests otherwise. The truth is, as long as there is unresolved hurt, the mind will keep revisiting it, not because we want to hold on, but because healing is still in progress. Some people stay in our thoughts because they represent something we lost. Maybe they were a source of comfort, a reminder of happiness, or a time in our lives when we felt truly seen and understood. Their presence in our minds is not just about them as individuals, but about what they symbolized in our lives. If they made us feel loved, their absence might remind us of our own longing for connection. If they were there during a difficult time, their memory might be tied to the strength we found in their presence. It is not always about missing the person. It is about missing the way we felt when they were around. And as long as those emotions remain unresolved, their memory continues to surface. Another reason someone stays in our thoughts is because we never truly expressed what we felt. We live in a world where vulnerability is often seen as a risk, and many of us hold back our true emotions out of fear of rejection, embarrassment, or loss of control. We tell ourselves it is easier to keep things inside, to remain guarded, to move on without fully addressing how we feel. But emotions that are suppressed do not disappear. They resurface in our thoughts, in our dreams, in the quiet moments when we least expect them. The person we keep thinking about may not even be aware of the weight they hold in our minds, yet they remain there because we never allowed ourselves to fully acknowledge or release what we felt. Sometimes the mind fixates on someone because we are still seeking validation. Perhaps they made us feel valued in a way that no one else has, or perhaps they left us feeling unworthy, questioning our own self-worth. When someone's presence in our thoughts is tied to our need for validation, it is often because we have given them power over how we see ourselves. The mind continues to bring them back, not because they are special, but because we are still looking for an answer that only we can give ourselves. Until we recognize our own worth, independent of their presence, they will continue to occupy space in our thoughts. For some, the person they cannot stop thinking about is a reminder of a choice they made, a path they took, or an identity they once held. It is not always about the individual, but about the life we associated with them. If they were part of a significant phase in our lives, a dream we pursued, a belief we held, or a version of ourselves we once embraced, their presence in our minds might be less about them and more about the part of ourselves we have not fully let go of. The nostalgia, the longing, the emotional attachment is a reflection of our own journey, of the parts of ourselves that are still evolving. When someone stays in our thoughts long after they have left our lives, it is often not about them at all. It is about us. It is about something within us that remains unresolved, unhealed, or unacknowledged. People become reflections of our deepest emotions, our greatest fears, and our most profound desires. Their presence in our minds is not always a sign of love, longing, or regret. Sometimes it is a signal that there is a part of ourselves we need to face. The mind does not cling to people without reason. It holds on to them because they represent something we have yet to understand about ourselves. Every person who crosses our path leaves an imprint. Some imprints fade over time, while others remain, not because the person was extraordinary, but because the emotions they triggered within us were powerful. If someone made us feel valued, their absence might make us question our own worth. If someone hurt us, their memory might be tied to wounds we have not yet healed. If someone inspired us, we may find ourselves chasing their presence in our thoughts, not because we miss them, but because we miss the part of ourselves that they awakened. The way we attach meaning to people is often based on our own emotional needs. Sometimes we are not thinking about the person themselves, but about what they symbolized in our lives. A past love may not just be a love story. It may represent a time when we felt seen and cherished. A lost friendship may not just be about the person. It may remind us of the version of ourselves that felt free, understood, or deeply connected. When someone stays on our mind, it is often because they represent an aspect of our own emotional world that we have yet to reconcile. Our minds use memories as a way to process emotions. When a person lingers in our thoughts, it may be because there is an emotion tied to them that has not yet been fully processed. It could be unresolved anger, buried sadness, or even joy that we have not fully embraced. The mind continues to bring them back because there is something we need to acknowledge, something we need to feel before we can truly let go. Avoiding these emotions does not make them disappear. It only makes them resurface in unexpected ways, keeping the person present in our subconscious, no matter how much we try to move on. There are times when the people who remain in our thoughts are mirrors, reflecting back to us the qualities we either admire or struggle with within ourselves. If we are drawn to someone's kindness, their presence in our thoughts may be a reminder of the kindness we wish to cultivate within ourselves. If we are haunted by someone's betrayal, their memory may be forcing us to confront our own fears of trust and vulnerability. These reflections are not always easy to accept, but they are necessary for growth. The people who stay in our minds the longest are often the ones who force us to look deeper into our own souls. Sometimes the presence of a person in our thoughts is a sign that we need to reclaim something we lost. Perhaps we once believed in love, but after experiencing heartbreak, we became afraid to trust again. The person who broke our heart lingers in our mind, not because we want them back, but because they are tied to the part of ourselves that still believes in love. Similarly, if we once felt confident and unstoppable, but then experienced rejection, the person who rejected us may remain in our thoughts, not because they were special, but because they represent the part of us that still craves validation. The mind holds on to people as a way of reminding us of what we need to reclaim, what we need to heal, and what we need to rediscover about ourselves. There is also an undeniable connection between memory and emotion. The mind does not categorize time in a linear way. It stores experiences based on the intensity of emotion attached to them. This is why certain people from years ago can suddenly appear in our thoughts as if no time has passed. If someone made us feel deeply, whether in joy or in pain, their memory becomes embedded in our subconscious. The mind recalls them as a way of revisiting those emotions, especially if there is something left unresolved. The stronger the emotional imprint, the more likely it is that their presence will resurface, sometimes when we least expect it. Another reason someone stays in our thoughts is that they were part of our identity at some point. Human beings do not just form relationships, they integrate others into their sense of self. When we love someone, they become a part of our story, a chapter in our personal journey. Letting go of them is not just about forgetting, it is about redefining who we are without them. This is why breakups, betrayals, or even friendships that fade away can feel so significant. It is not just about losing a person. It is about losing a version of ourselves that existed in relation to them. Until we come to terms with this shift in identity, they remain in our minds as a reminder of who we once were. It is also important to recognize that the mind seeks familiarity and comfort. Sometimes we think about certain people because they represent a sense of security, even if the relationship itself was not entirely positive. The past, no matter how painful, is something we know, whereas the future is uncertain. The mind clings to familiar emotions, even if they are not the healthiest, simply because they feel safer than the unknown. This is why even toxic relationships or painful experiences can linger in our thoughts. We are not necessarily attached to the pain itself, but to the sense of identity and security that came with it. Not all lingering thoughts about someone are signs of love, regret, or unfinished business. Sometimes they are simply reminders of the lessons we have yet to fully absorb. They are signposts along the journey of our emotional and personal growth, guiding us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves. Whether their presence in our thoughts is painful, comforting, or confusing, it always carries meaning. The people who stay in our minds the longest are not always the ones we loved the most. They are often the ones who have the most to teach us about ourselves. When someone repeatedly crosses your mind, the natural question that arises is why them? Why does this person out of the billions in the world occupy so much space in your thoughts? Why do their words, their actions, their presence, or even their absence continue to echo in your mind? But perhaps the real question is not why them, but why now? Because the timing of their presence in your thoughts is just as important as the person themselves. The mind does not bring people back into your awareness without reason. There is always something beneath the surface, a message hidden within the persistence of their memory, a lesson that you may not have fully absorbed. People appear in our thoughts at specific moments in our lives because something about them is connected to the journey we are on at that very moment. If you are thinking about someone from your past, it may not be about missing them at all. It may be about what they represented in your life. Were they a source of strength, a reminder of love, a lesson in loss, or perhaps they were a reflection of something within you that still needs to be acknowledged? The timing of their presence in your mind is often a clue to what you need to focus on within yourself. There are moments when life places you at a crossroads, forcing you to make decisions that could change everything. And in these moments, the mind often reaches back, pulling forward memories, people, and emotions from the past. Not because you need to return to them, but because something about them is relevant to the path you are walking now. If you are facing uncertainty, you may think of someone who once gave you confidence. If you are experiencing loneliness, you may recall someone who once made you feel deeply connected. If you are feeling stuck, the memory of someone who once inspired you might surface as a reminder of the fire you once had within you. The presence of a person in your thoughts is not always about the person. It is about the version of yourself that you associate with them. The mind has a way of storing emotions in layers. And sometimes people return to our thoughts because we are finally in a place where we are ready to process those emotions. Maybe at the time, the pain was too fresh, the lesson too difficult, the truth too overwhelming to accept. So the mind tucked it away, waiting for the right time to bring it back to the surface. And now, here they are again, appearing in your thoughts, not as a mistake, but as a sign that you are ready to understand what you couldn't before. It is easy to believe that the sudden resurgence of someone's memory means that they are meant to be in your life again. But more often than not, it means that you are meant to revisit what they represented, so you can finally release it. Sometimes the mind holds on to people because there is a feeling you have yet to let go of. Maybe you are moving forward, but a part of you is still tethered to an old version of love, of trust, of security. And when you find yourself in a situation that challenges these emotions, the mind reaches back to someone who once made you feel them deeply. If you are stepping into a new relationship, you may find yourself thinking about an old one, not because you miss it, but because your mind is trying to make sense of what love meant to you then versus what it means to you now. If you are facing a new fear, your thoughts may return to someone who once helped you feel safe. If you are trying to rebuild your confidence, you may think of the person who once made you doubt yourself. The mind is not trying to pull you backward. It is trying to help you connect the dots between your past and your present so you can move forward with clarity. It is also possible that someone appears in your thoughts because they are tied to an unresolved question in your life. What would have happened if I had chosen differently? Did they ever think about me the way I thought about them? Was there something I didn't see back then that I need to see now? The mind does not like unanswered questions. It seeks resolution, and when it cannot find it in reality, it tries to create it in thoughts. But the truth is, many of the answers we seek from others are actually answers we need to find within ourselves. It is not about what they felt, what they did, or what they meant. It is about what their presence in your thoughts is revealing about your own growth, your own healing, and your own journey. There are also times when the person on your mind represents a part of your own identity that you are still trying to understand. Maybe they were there during a chapter of your life when you were becoming someone new. Maybe they played a role in shaping your beliefs, your fears, your dreams. And now, as you stand at another turning point, they return to your thoughts, not because they hold the key to your future, but because something about them is connected to how you see yourself. The mind does not bring back people randomly. It brings back what is relevant to the evolution of your own story. Emotions have a way of resurfacing when we least expect them. And often the presence of someone in our thoughts is not about them at all. It is about us. It is about something within us that is still shifting, still healing, still searching for understanding. And the timing of their presence in our thoughts is a reminder that there is something within us that is ready to be acknowledged, understood, and released. There are moments in life when a name, a face, or a memory appears in our thoughts unexpectedly, and no matter how much we try to push it away, it lingers. It stays with us in quiet moments, in the spaces between conversations, in the stillness of the night. We wonder why this person continues to exist so vividly in our mind, why their presence refuses to fade, why they hold a space in our thoughts long after they have left our life. But perhaps the real question is not why we are thinking about them, but what their presence in our mind is trying to tell us. Sometimes a person occupies our thoughts because we are searching for something that we once found in them. Maybe they made us feel safe in a way that no one else has. Maybe they believed in us when we didn't believe in ourselves. Maybe they saw something in us that we are still trying to see within ourselves. Their presence in our mind is not always about longing for them. It is about longing for the emotions they brought into our life. It is about the way they made us feel, the way they reflected back to us a version of ourselves that we either loved or feared. And when those emotions remain unresolved within us, the mind continues to bring them back, searching for clarity, for understanding, for closure. There are times when we find ourselves at a turning point in life, standing at the edge of change, uncertain of what lies ahead. And in those moments, the mind often reaches back to the past, pulling forward memories of people who shaped us, challenged us, or reminded us of who we used to be. It is not because we need to return to them. It is because we are trying to make sense of where we are now. If they were once a source of comfort, we may be searching for that same sense of security. If they once inspired us, we may be longing to reconnect with the passion we felt in their presence. If they hurt us, we may still be trying to understand the lesson that pain was meant to teach us. The presence of a person in our thoughts is often a reflection of the questions we are asking ourselves in the present. Memories have a way of resurfacing at the exact moments we need to revisit them. There are emotions we push away, believing that if we ignore them long enough, they will eventually disappear. But emotions do not simply fade into nothingness. They wait. They wait for the right moment to return, for the right time to be understood. When someone appears in our thoughts over and over again, it may be because there is something within us that is finally ready to face what we have been avoiding. Maybe we have been carrying unspoken words, buried feelings, or a truth that we were not yet ready to accept. And now, when we are strong enough, the mind brings them back, not as a punishment, but as a reminder that healing happens when we allow ourselves to feel what we once refused to acknowledge. It is easy to believe that thinking about someone means that they are meant to be in our lives again, but that is not always the case. More often than not, their presence in our mind has nothing to do with them and everything to do with us. The mind clings to what is familiar, to what once felt like home, even if home was never truly safe. We revisit old memories because they represent something we have not yet fully let go of, whether it is hope, pain, love, or regret. And as long as there is a part of us that still holds on to those emotions, the person attached to them will continue to linger in our thoughts. Sometimes we think about people not because we miss them, but because we miss the version of ourselves that existed when they were in our lives. Maybe they were there during a time when we felt truly alive, when we were chasing dreams, when we believed in something greater than ourselves. Maybe they were part of a chapter in our story that we are struggling to close. It is not the person themselves that we are holding on to. It is the feeling, the memory, the version of us that we associate with them. And until we find a way to reconnect with that part of ourselves in the present, the mind will continue to bring them back, trying to remind us of who we once were. There are also times when someone appears in our thoughts because they represent a lesson we have yet to learn. Maybe they were a reminder of our boundaries, of the way we deserve to be treated, of the love we are worthy of receiving. Maybe they were a mirror reflecting back to us the patterns we keep repeating, the fears we need to overcome, the wounds we need to heal. Their presence in our mind is not random. It is a message. It is the mind's way of telling us that there is something we need to understand before we can truly move forward. The people who stay in our thoughts the longest are often the ones who have the most to teach us. They are not there by accident. They appear when we are ready to listen, to reflect, to grow. And whether their memory brings comfort or pain, whether it fills us with longing or clarity, one thing is certain: their presence in our thoughts carries meaning. It is up to us to find that meaning, to embrace the lesson, and to finally allow ourselves to move beyond the past and step fully into the present. There are moments when you sit in silence and a name suddenly echoes in your mind. A memory surfaces without warning, bringing with it an old conversation, a familiar smile, or even a wound you thought had long healed. No matter how much time has passed, no matter how much you have changed, their presence lingers in your thoughts as if they never truly left. And you wonder why. Why does this person still exist in your mind? Why do they return again and again when you least expect it? Sometimes a person remains in our thoughts because we have not yet let go of the emotions attached to them. It is not always about missing them. It is about missing the way they made us feel. Perhaps they once made you feel seen, valued, or deeply understood. Perhaps they were the one person who made you feel safe in a world that often felt overwhelming. Or maybe they brought out a part of you that no one else ever did. And now, in their absence, your mind holds on to them as a way of holding on to those feelings, as if keeping them in your thoughts can somehow bring back what you once had. But the truth is, when we cannot let go of someone in our mind, it is often because we are not ready to let go of a part of ourselves. If they were tied to a time when you were at your happiest, thinking about them may be your mind's way of trying to reconnect with that version of you. If they were part of a painful chapter in your life, their memory may be resurfacing because there is still healing left to do. We do not hold on to people without reason. We hold on to them because something within us still seeks resolution, understanding, or closure. The mind does not forget easily, especially when strong emotions are involved. It stores memories not in the order they happened, but in the intensity with which they were felt. This is why certain people from the past can feel closer to us than those in the present. Their impact, whether in love or in pain, was deep enough to be imprinted in our subconscious. And sometimes those emotions get triggered by something as simple as a song, a place, a scent, or even a passing thought. We may not realize it, but our surroundings constantly remind us of the people who have shaped us, bringing their memory back to the surface even when we are not consciously thinking about them. There are times when we think about someone because we never got the closure we needed. Maybe things ended too suddenly without a final conversation, without a proper goodbye. Maybe there were words left unspoken, feelings left unexpressed. The human mind craves resolution. It wants to understand, to make sense of what happened, to find an ending to the story that feels complete. And when we do not get that closure in reality, our thoughts try to create it. We replay moments, we imagine different outcomes, we wonder about the what ifs, but the more we seek closure from another person, the more we realize that the only closure we truly need is the one we give ourselves. Sometimes a person lingers in our mind because they were part of our transformation. They were there during a defining moment in our lives, when we were discovering ourselves, when we were learning about love, when we were overcoming something difficult. They became woven into our personal growth, and letting go of them feels like letting go of a part of our own story. But the truth is, people come into our lives for a reason, and their presence serves a purpose. Some are meant to stay, while others are meant to teach us something and then move on. And even if they no longer walk beside us, the lessons they brought remain. There are also times when we think about someone because we are at a similar point in our journey as when we first met them. Maybe you are facing the same fears, the same dreams, the same uncertainties, and their presence in your thoughts is not about them. It is about you. It is about reminding you of how far you have come, or perhaps of something you need to revisit. The mind has a way of connecting past experiences to the present, bringing forward the people who once influenced us in moments when we are seeking direction again. And then there are the rare moments when we think about someone simply because their energy still exists within us. Connection is not just physical or emotional, it is energetic. Some people leave behind an imprint so deep that even when they are gone, a part of them remains. And maybe that is okay. Maybe the people who stay in our thoughts, who continue to exist in our hearts, are not there to haunt us or hold us back, but to remind us of what it means to feel deeply, to love fully, and to be human.